All right. So those of you who have done any sort of anatomy before, either academically or just out of pure interest, both ways are good. Do you know the Latin name for the hip bones? That's one. Remember, the hip bones are formed out of actually 3 different bones that fuse together. So the ilium is one. Sacrum is part of, so now I'm doing the teacher thing. Sacrum is part of the pelvis. I'm asking about a hip bone. So ilia, pubis, yeah, hip bone, yep. And ischium, yep. So basically you've got you've got 2 hip bones on either side. And it's the hip bones, that the hip joint, the leg articulates with. Can you see that? And the reason Jenny came over and she said, oh, do you want to lay them on the floor? And the reason is no, you can actually, if you separate them, you can actually walk around and get a 3-dimensional image. So your leg connects to a hip bone. And the Latin name for hip bone is what? No, the hip bone. When you have those 3 bones fused together, ilium, ischium, and pubis, it becomes the hip bone. What's it called in Latin? No. So this is what's interesting about human beings. We want to name things. Yeah, it seems like once we learnt language, we thought, oh, how can I put this to use to? So we go and name things. In Latin, this 3 bones conjoined, the ilium, the pubis, and the ischium, when they're conjoined together, the name is os, meaning bone, in nomine, which means the bone without a name. Os in nomine. Now, in nomine, why in nomine? Because the tendency of when we want to name things, we try to associate it with something we already know. Yeah, so this looks like a spade, yes, and so on and so on. But this particular bone here, it's such an odd shape that they couldn't associate it with anything else. So it's the bone without a name. Luckily in English, we have a name. It's called the hip bone. Yep. That is the leg bone. Yep. Or the top of the femur, the femoral head. Now, once again, remember, humans have a predilection for naming things. And if you become a specialist, trochanter. I like it. Yeah, it's not only the trochanter, but the greater trochanter and the lesser trochanter. Grande, beautiful. Yeah. So you see, we have a predilection. And if you have a specialization, your naming of things becomes really, really refined so that you can locate any part at any time. Does your understanding of anatomy need to be that refined? I would say no. Beautiful. That's the perfect question. So what is a pelvis? A pelvis is a composite of 3 bones, 2 hip bones, and 1 sacrum. Yeah? So when they refer to pelvis, they mean these 2 hip bones joined on either side, connected at the back quite firmly to the sacrum, and connected at the front quite firmly between the 2 pubic bones. So basically what you end up with is a ring of bone, a really strong ring of bone. And from an engineering perspective, this is really important. This ring of bone is really important because all your weight is dropping from here, entering this place, and then all of that force needs to somehow get distributed to the legs. But that's another story for Thursday. Yeah? Getting a visual sense of what a pelvis is, or getting a felt sense of what the pelvis is something that most of the population has no idea about. Except women, yeah. Yes, yes. And how narrow this little passage is. Yeah, yeah. So that's a major distinction between male and female anatomy. In male anatomy, that the ring here, the pelvic basin, is quite, in males, quite small, females, larger, for various reasons, for obvious reasons. Yeah. Which means the weight gets distributed differently, which means gait will also be different because the pelvis is of a wider nature. So already you have all sorts of distinctions. Now, I'm saying this to you now, not because I want you to know the names of all this, but so that you can start to build in your mind a visual representation of what a pelvis looks like in space. You know, in my first skill as a somatic teacher was in imagery. And in imagery work, very often they talk about the pelvis as like a basin. That's a nice image, but I wouldn't want to be carrying water around in this guy. There'd be a lot of stuff spilling forward here. The front of that basin is all musculature. Yeah. So it is kind of like a basin. You can think of it like a basin. Or you could think of it as a sphere. Yeah, it's a whole sphere. When you were doing that lesson, one you were just doing with Jenny, rolling, which of those two ways of thinking about the pelvis would serve you best? Thinking of the pelvis like a sphere, that image, or thinking of the pelvis as a basin? Which one? Why? Yeah. Because the advantage of any sphere is you can just roll it along the ground and its center of gravity doesn't have to go up or down or anything. It just goes. It's like a beautiful wheel, but in 3 dimensions. Yeah? So if you think of the pelvis as being like a sphere, then literally you can roll that sphere all around. So this is the game that you're about to play with each other. Let's see, what kind of groups? Lanyard, cord. Could you picture in the groups of your cord groups, the color of your cords that you're no longer wearing? Get into groups of 6. Get into groups of 6. Oh, please, Philippa. Dislocated. That's right. Yeah, the forces just get into groups of 6. That's the card color. Thank you. Yeah, get into your card color. And as soon as you get into your card color, I'll let you know what the next part of the game is. Okay, so you're lying down. And now the rest of us dance around wildly and then sacrifice them. No, sorry. Okay, so here's the instruction. Let's say I'm the person in the group doing the observing and all the rest are just witnessing. And what you're witnessing is this. You're going to do that end movement in the ATM, coming up to sitting and rolling back down. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for that moment, if there is one, when your pelvis stops. And if I see your pelvis stops, I'll go bump. It's like you use the word speed bump. Yeah, bump. There's a bump there. Okay, off you go. And you guys go, did I see that too? And then you go back again. Bump. Continue. Yep, got it. So basically, one person's observing, the other person's going, yeah, I think I saw that. And then you just take turns. Who's lying on the floor? No, she's already stopped. I've witnessed the bump. Listen up for a second. So there are two people working with each other, one person doing the moving, one person really closely looking for any moment there's a discontinuity in the movement of the pelvis. So that's what two people are doing. What on earth are the rest of you doing? The rest of you are actually observing what's going on. When I say bump, did you really see that person's pelvis stop or didn't you? Did you see that? You don't have to confer. You just have to go, I saw it, I didn't see it. And then you just keep switching roles. So that's as simple as the game is. Hang on.